Well, welcome in to My Dogs Are Barking on MPW Digital. And man, we got a little bit of a different episode today. I'm very, very excited for all of you barbecue smokers, all of you grillers, and just all of you who love delicious food. We have a Mississippi barbecue legend, really just a barbecue legend in general, Malcolm Reed from howtobarbecueright.com with Killer Hogs Barbecue. Malcolm, we're so thankful that you would join us today. We got a lot of people who love barbecue, even people who are interested in getting started in it. Man, what's it like to have just every day of your life in some way or another like revolve around barbecue? That's your business.
Yeah, man. Well, first off, thanks for the invite, man. Enjoy to come on here and talk with you. But yeah, it's a lot of fun. I started doing this years ago, man. I guess it was about 08, 09. I went full time into barbecue mode, and I hadn't looked back. So it feels like I like to say I retired then, but but I work way more now than I ever did when I was sitting at a desk. And I just enjoy it. It's a passion of mine to cook things outside, outdoor cooking, anything you can do. I try to do it. And I love sharing that journey along the way. And that's what How to Barbecue Right's been about, man. Just sharing recipes and hoping to help people cook better in their homes.
That's terrific. Yeah, for those watching, it's a real treat to talk to Malcolm. He creates really like good products that we can use at home for those who are not professionals, those who are not in caterers or that kind of thing. They just want to like impress their friends when they come over and have a good taste. So I did want to ask Malcolm, at this point you've smoked it all. You've probably done some very exotic type of animals at some point too. What would you say, like when it comes to what's your favorite thing to smoke? And is there a favorite thing, or is it just kind of a rotation? Like you'll go do a butt, then a brisket, then wings. Is there anything that you're like, this is just an old favorite?
My favorite's whole hog, just because of the process. And being Mississippi, we eat a lot of pork. It's we're more when we think of most of the time when you ask somebody what barbecue is in Mississippi, they're going to say ribs or pulled pork or something like that. And whole hog's kind of the granddaddy of all that. It's the whole animal. And I like it because it is an event. It's not just something I'm going to throw on and do by myself. Usually we're going to have several folks hanging out. When you have a hog hog cooking, the most fun part is cooking the hog, getting it ready to serve, and then you share it with all these people. And a hog will feed well over 100 people, so you've got a pretty good party going on. So it's always a good time whenever we fire the pits up and put hogs on.
Man, the smell that must be. I've never done a full hog. I've done so many different individual parts of it, but never put on a full one there. Well, for those who are listening that are beginners, maybe they just got a smoker for their birthday, or they're about to get one for Christmas. What would you say is something that is an easy thing to smoke for those who are just kind of starting out? They're not really experts. What's something simple that they could do?
Well, most people start with the pork butt just because they're pretty inexpensive. You can usually find them on sale for around 15, 20 bucks. And everybody that's had barbecues had pulled pork. I mean, I think that's just a staple. So learning how to cook it's really easy. It's all about just letting it cook till it's done. So I think that's a great place to start. And there's all kinds of great seasonings out there. You can even look up recipes and kind of get an idea to make your own. But just getting some meat on a pork butt and then getting it over some smoke and just sitting there and hanging out and letting the smoker do the work. You just kind of control the vents and make sure your temperature stays steady. You can cook it at, around 225 to 250 degrees. It takes about 8 to 10 hours. It's a long cook, but it's an easy cook. And to speed it up a little bit halfway through, once you get some really good bark on the outside, that's that nice looking crust. You can actually wrap it up in aluminum foil and it'll speed the cooking process up. It helps it start to kind of braise and break down inside that foil. And it makes it super tender, super juicy. That's what makes it really good.
Yeah, pork butt is something that you're exactly right. It's a simple cook because you can kind of leave it alone for a while. And I know people watch online and see like there's videos where people go, well, every hour I sprayed it with whatever, and that's fine. You can do that, but you can also just straight up leave it alone, and it'll continue to roll on. I want to tell the story, Matt. So for those who don't know, I grew up in Starkville for a while, moved to the middle of nowhere, Alabama. And I was 14 years old, and my mom and dad said to go get a job, and I found this little barbecue restaurant, just kind of getting paid under the table, $6, but a lot of barbecue. $6 an hour was fine because it was better than no money. And my best friend and I were working in the smokehouse just all the time, and that was a whole process of make sure you put all the meat on this giant smoker, then you start adding your firewood after you kind of cut it up. And one particular day, man, we were my friend decided to go ahead and I had the smoker open. I was putting meat in there. He went ahead and put the logs on the fire before we had a chance to shut this giant thing. And I'm putting stuff in. And all of a sudden, man, the flames start just shooting out of there. And I really thought we're going to burn this man's place down. So I ran inside, and I'm terrified of he's just a good old country boy that owns a smokehouse. Not a guy you want to pick and have fun with. And I ran up to him and said, "It's on fire! It's on fire! The smokehouse is on fire," which is a real poor choice of words. So he ran out. He ran out there and fixed the situation. The pork butts cooked just fine throughout the night, and they ended up being okay. So you can do some things to them, and the pork butts are going to be okay.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
You got to get that fire under control, though. That's the main thing, man. If you get that oxygen cut off to it, it'll put it out. It's easy to panic in a situation like that, especially if you don't know, because you see flames and you think, "Oh, we're fixing to burn the thing down, ruin all this meat we got on here." But I'm sure it turned out just fine.
It did, man. It did. Yeah, that pork butt is a wonderful thing. We're about to get to a couple other topics here for those who are experts in smoking meat, some different things that they can do with that. And also for both Mississippi teams are off on a bye week this week, so some options for them to do that. But before we get to that, I do want to tell you that this episode is sponsored in part by ARPA's in Starkville. ARPA's is in the heart of Starkville in the Cotton District. ARPA's understands that great food and drinks are best enjoyed in the company of friends and loved ones. Their awesome atmosphere creates a great spot for laughter, conversation, and shared memories. So whether you are looking for a spot to catch up over coffee, a great gathering place, it's a great gathering place for special occasions, a great hangout. Overall, you go there, it's right behind Two Brothers there in the Cotton District. Mention My Dogs Are Barking whenever you are ordering and get 15% off of your order. So that's great news. If you're tired of barbecue for just a day or so and want to switch up the flavor, make sure you check out ARPA's. Malcolm, I did want to ask you this. There are other people who maybe are a little bit like myself. Like they've been smoking things for a long time. Maybe not an expert, but something that's more of intermediate. What would you say for someone that's looking for a challenge, something new to cook, something that's a little bit more difficult?
Well, first off, I don't think anybody gets tired of barbecue now. Come on, we're not gonna get tired. but no, everybody thinks they're an expert till they start cooking brisket, because no two briskets cook alike. So I would say if you want to just see how good you are, go ahead and start cooking brisket. Go ahead. Brisket can be really unforgiving, and it's not that it's hard to cook. It's more of a patient game and knowing when to take that thing off the pit. So you've got to really understand how to keep your temperature steady, and then you've got to know how the brisket should feel when it's done, because you can't just cook by time and temperature alone. You've got to know what's going on, how that meat feels, how it's broke down. So it's going to make it good. And so, I mean, even bad brisket's pretty good, but sometimes it can turn out tough as leather if you don't know how to break it down. So whenever you think you're an expert, go ahead, jump in there and do one of those.
What is it about the brisket that I've always heard this, but I guess I never really understood it? Doesn't the brisket hold for a long, long time at a particular temperature and then break through? And that's when it has the possibility of overcooking and drying out?
It does. It's called the stall. So you get into it with all your proteins, but brisket in particular is notorious for having a long stall. But what it is, it's that point, right? All these protein fibers are kind of wrapped in collagen, and that's what holds them all together in the structure of the muscle of the animal. And so that point right where you're fixing to break all that collagen down, it's rendering the fat. It's pushing moisture out of it. That's what's taking it to done. That's what's happening. And it hangs on right at the very last moment. So usually it occurs about 170 degrees internal in that meat. And it might sit there for, 3 or 4 hours in some cases. And so that's a long time. And people people think something's wrong with the piece of meat. Something's wrong with their fire. Their thermometers aren't working right, because you see it hanging out there and you've climbed to 170 really fast, putting, cold meat on and taking it up. And then it stops. And it's like it just stops cooking. It stalls out. But it's what it's really doing. It's building up enough pressure on the inside to render and break all that down. And then it'll start skyrocketing up again. That's when you're going to see it go 180, 190. And then as you get closer to 200, usually that slows down. And that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for that slow down in internal temperature when I know I get it up there to the point it's done. I want it to go 30, 35, 40 minutes between the degrees of going up the scale. And when I see that, I start feeling on it and feeling what it feels like. And it should, if you've ever had butter sitting out at room temperature on the counter and you've taken like a butter knife or something and you've put it in it and it just glides through that butter with no resistance, that's the feel you want on your brisket. And you want to do it multiple places, not just on the fatty end, not on that point end. You want to do it on the flat end too. And when you start feeling that no resistance and your thermometer is just gliding in it, that's when it's done. And that's when it's ready to come off the heat. But you don't need to cut it up right then. You need to let it set and rest. That's that last part of the cooking process. The rest is crucial on a brisket. And you can rest that dude for a minimum of 2 hours is what I do. But I've went as far as 6 or 8, in the right conditions.
Oh man, yeah. Well, the rest part is hard to. That's why I guess balancing your schedule out is important because you know how it is. Mom's in the next room, like, hey, what time we gonna eat? The wife's like, hey, we got everybody here. So that's the hard part. So scheduling out ahead of time and making sure you have enough time to rest has got to be important.
Absolutely. That's why it works out great. So if you're going to a tailgate or you're going to a buddy's house or you're having people over, you got to give yourself time for that. And it holds so well. When I say hold a brisket, you just need an empty cooler, dry, no ice, no nothing, just a dry cooler. And that works as a warming box too. So you take that hot brisket, and a lot of times I'll cook briskets. I'll start them out to where they develop a bark, just like we would a pork butt. About halfway through, I'm going to get them in a pan or either get them wrapped up tight in aluminum foil, and I'm going to let them break down. And then when I take them off the pit, when they're done, when I felt them and I say, oh, that's perfect, I open that foil up to let the steam off because I don't want it to continue cooking. That's where you'll dry it out and you'll overcook it. But you want to let that hot energy out. And it only takes about 5-10 minutes sitting there on the counter, just letting it steam off. And then you cover it back up and stick it in that empty cooler, and it's good to go. Let it sit there for 2 hours. If you're driving somewhere, it's a perfect time. And then I always want to cut it up wherever I get to where I'm going. Whether I'm serving it at home, I'm going to cut it up and bring it out and serve it. I'm not going to do it and then store it because it's going to get dry.
Okay. And for Ole Miss and Mississippi State, they're both off this weekend, so no tailgating at the actual stadium or on the Quad or the Grove. But there is there is obviously a great opportunity just to not have to drive and go to the game, but to try something at home. Man, what would you say for those who are just kind of like, hey, what the heck? I just want to give something a try. Maybe it's a particular method they've never tried or a piece of protein. What's something fun that could be kind of different than the average kind of smoke this weekend?
Well, since we're close to Thanksgiving, everybody's doing birds. So, doing these turkeys or spatchcocking a turkey, if you've never cooked a turkey spatchcock, that's really fun to do. It's a fast way to cook one. And smoked turkey, if you eat a smoked turkey, you'll never go back to oven roasted or deep fried again. It's so much better. But those, that's really a good choice for somebody that may not have done it. Around the holidays, I love doing prime ribs or strip loins. It's whole roast, and they're so good, man. A strip loin one's a little more on the inexpensive side. Like a whole ribeye will cost you a lot. That's a pretty expensive piece of meat. You don't want to mess it up. And the only way to mess it up is overcook it. So you got to really know your internal temp. So get used to doing that. But another one that people go crazy over when they try it is the pork belly burn ends. If you've never had a pork belly burn in, it's this little cube of just smoked pork belly, and it melts in your mouth, and it gets we sauce it and get it real sweet, get like this candy coating on the outside. And they make excellent tailgate food because, you're walking by, standing around talking, you can pop one in your mouth, get you something cold to drink, and, off you go. But the pork belly burn ends are definitely worth doing if you've never done them.
I love that because you mentioned, the pork. Oh goodness, the pork belly burn ends are so uniquely good. Like they just don't taste like anything else. And the first thing mentioned, talking about spatchcocking a turkey and cooking it that way, think of it this way for those who are listening. This might be a good trial run for Thanksgiving. If you're like,
Absolutely.
hey, I'm not exactly sure, you could go ahead and try it. And the spatchcock method is how I cook Thanksgiving every Thanksgiving, thanks to your videos a couple years ago, because it's a unique way. And as you mentioned, it cooks faster. And in my house, man, it's all about speed. We got to get everything going because we got everybody running around. So that's a great suggestion. Make sure you guys try that out. Check it out on YouTube on how to do that. This would be a great trial run. Get some of your buddies, or maybe bring some food to a neighbor if you and a couple other people in the house aren't ready to eat turkey just yet. But yeah, go ahead and do that. I did want to bring up our final sponsor before we come into the last two questions here. Malcolm is remarkably successful with his Memphis in May barbecue victories and won several competitions there. I love to barbecue, never won a competition. And in fact, when it comes to cooking, I don't the closest I've ever been when I was younger, like in my teenage years, for whatever reason, I loved baking cakes, like with my grandmother. I came in second, didn't win anything. For those who do win competitions, though, it is possible to get some change and possibly even be rich. But hey, what does it mean to be rich? Maybe it's less about a magic number, reaching a magic number, and more about discovering the magic in life. Skip Langley is your Batesville, Mississippi, Edward Jones advisor, serving clients in the area and across the state. You can count on him for financial strategies that can help support a life you love, because the key to being rich is knowing what counts. So contact him today at 662-563-9843, and together you can find your rich. Edward Jones, member SIPC. Malcolm, as it gets colder, and I say as it gets colder, man, we're in the middle of November and it's still warm outside. It's crazy, but eventually, good Lord willing, it will be colder at some point here in the South. What's something a good method for smoking a chili or a stew? That's something I've never even done to put on the smoker. What's a good method for folks?
Well, a lot of people don't think about it, but your barbecue pit is an extension of your oven in your house. So a lot of things that you can cook on them, once you learn how the airflow works and how fire works, you can achieve those same temperatures. So if you want to bake a cake, you can absolutely do it on a smoker. If you want to make a stew, you can absolutely do it. So one that I like that comes to mind, you see people do these, they call it over the top chilies, and you'll take your ground meat, whatever it is, and you kind of form it into like a loaf. You just season it up however you want. A lot of times I just use chili seasoning, but you cook it on a little raised rack above your pot of chili. And as you put your tomatoes, your vegetables, all the stuff that you like, whether you're a bean man or not in chili. I personally like a little beans in my chili, and I put all that in the Dutch oven. A Dutch oven works great for this, just a big iron pot. And then you cook your meat above it to render it, get it done. You're getting all that juice and that flavor in it. And as the meat cooks, it's absorbing some of the smoke from the actual pit you're cooking it on. So when you get it done, you break it up and you add it back to that chili, and it's another layer of flavor. And time wise, it usually takes you a little longer. We're talking, 2 or 3 hours to do a pot of chili on a smoker versus just being able to throw it together real fast on your stovetop, but it's worth the effort. And stews work the same thing. You got to think, once you get any liquid heated up to 212, the boiling point, that's about as hot as you're ever going to get it. You really don't want it super hotter than that. You just want it to simmer. So that's what we're doing. We're breaking these down and we're letting them absorb some of the smoke that's coming from the wood, from the charcoal we're using. And then you're accenting the flavor of whatever stew or chili or soup or you're doing on a pit. It works the same way, man. And I highly recommend trying it, because you're going to get another layer of flavor that you've never had in that kind of dish.
That sounds fantastic, man. And Malcolm, as we finish up here, and Malcolm it was so kind to come and join us today. And he didn't ask me to do this, but look, this is from my counter. If you are someone that has never tried this, I would just suggest get some baby back ribs, and this weekend cook it and put some the barbecue rub by Killer Hogs on there. It gives not only a great flavor, it gives such a great color to what you're cooking. And I don't post a lot of things on Instagram. I'll post a picture of my wife and I on a date night or something, or a Bible verse, or ribs that are on the smoker, just because the color is so pretty. And so I would certainly suggest that. And Malcolm did not ask me to do this, but I would just love him to tell us, is there a particular one of your products for someone who wanted to try something this weekend, a product that you carry that you would suggest, and what protein pairing goes with it?
Well, my daily is probably the AP seasoning. And it's if you think of all purpose, that's what it is. And it's good. Like I don't care if you're a vegetarian, if whatever, you can find a use for that seasoning, and it goes on everything. I've had people put it on eggs, popcorn, they use it on barbecue, of course, but it's just a versatile seasoning that's basically a salt, pepper, garlic base. So you think of these seasonings that you're used to tasting, it's going to have that flavor just a little bit better. and I can use it. Man, I use it on everything. So the AP is a good one to start. But the barbecue rub, the one that you just showed, is the one that started it all. That was the first one that I had, and we used it in competitions to get, not only does it taste good, it puts a really pretty color on that meat. And so it's good on chicken. I mean, you can use it on chicken. You can use it on pork. You can use it on seafood. You can use it on beef. It's versatile. It's not too hot. It's not too sweet. It's not too, it's just a good mixture of overall savory flavors that blend together and make your food taste better. So thanks for letting me get a shout out.
Of course. And I always, for wings, I will cook it with the hot barbecue rub. And that's because you still get the great color and the great taste. But if you're like me and love a little extra heat, you got to go for it. Now, my wife, even though she's Cajun, does not love like a ton of spice. So when I do her wings, I just use the barbecue rub. Finally, Malcolm, I mean, this is a sports show after all. I have thoroughly enjoyed this so much. But tell us, you're in Hernando?
We live in Hernando. Yeah, I went to Ole Miss. My wife's a state grad, so we're a house divided, but we work it out.
Of course.
I don't pick on her too hard about state. She don't pick on me too hard about Ole Miss. We cheer for each other's teams when we're not playing each other. Now, the Egg Bowl, that's a different story. It's a different story.
Right. So when it comes to Egg Bowl, and obviously Ole Miss having a phenomenal season, one of the biggest wins in school history versus Georgia.
Absolutely.
Man, how are you feeling, man? What's the temperature of you and your friends around you going for the rest of the season?
We're so excited. I mean, we knew this was possible. As an Ole Miss fan, we knew what was coming. I mean, we had some catching up to do with these big schools to play with them, but I feel like Coach Kiffin's fine. He's turned the page for Ole Miss football, and he's brought in and he's got, with these new NIL deals, and you can get players to come in. Like it or not, it's here, and that's what it takes to compete in the college football world today. And if you're going to be a school that wants to play with those, you're going to have to step up. And I'm glad to see it. It's exciting. That was the best defensive effort I've seen from an Ole Miss team in all the years. I mean, just seeing them people, talk about how that game went. It was total domination by the Rebels. It was exciting to watch. I mean, after those first three plays, I was really nervous. 2 sacks and an interception, and then Dart going to the tunnel because he tweaked the ankle. And it's like, man, how's this going to come? But then we see Simmons come in and just walk them down the field, and the running game's strong. And it was, I think Ole Miss had that bend, don't break. Let's get after them on defense against Georgia. And so when they shut them down, and you see Lane Kiffin taking field goals, not, doing his normal thing, it's like he's progressed a little in coaching, and they knew they could control the clock. We'll take the points when we get them. We're going to trust our defense. If they keep playing like that, I mean, not only are they going to go through Florida and probably your Dogs, but I think they have a really good shot if they let them in the playoffs for Ole Miss to really go somewhere. I mean, it's going to be exciting to watch. The way I see it right now, there's projections showing them playing Notre Dame. That would be exciting to see Ole Miss play Notre Dame and then possibly go play Oregon next. I'll take it all day long. Bring on the Ducks.
It is very exciting for the future, especially obviously for Ole Miss fans. This is really a season like no other, is what we've been kind of talking about all season long. And for Mississippi State fans, like obviously it's a completely flipped side of the coin. We're really kind of rebuilding, trying to get better. But it's just so funny, man. The Egg Bowl is just one of those unique things that even though Ole Miss has far and beyond better talent than Mississippi State, it just seems like that's going to be a game. I would not be shocked if it's only a 10-point game by the end of it. I know Mississippi State fans are praying that's all it is.
Well, I will say this about Mississippi State: they have progressively gotten better and figure out ways to put it together. And it doesn't translate it in the win column yet, but it is a rebuilding year for them. But I do see progress being made at Ole Miss. I mean, at Mississippi State, you see their offense is doing better. The coaching is going to find a way to put them in the game. And you're right. I don't care what the record is in the Egg Bowl. When those two teams get together, throw it out the window. It's going to be just who's got the sheer will to put it at the end that day. So I'm expecting it to be a good game. I hope Ole Miss wins. They got to. I mean, we're on a must win now. I mean, the rest of the way. So